Yo guys, Zach Moore with Crypto Minimalist. Are you wondering if you're making the right moves on Pulsechain pre-bridge? Stick around and see how I handled my business. What we're looking at right here is plsburn.com. It's so far my favorite site to look at all the Pulse information on the Plsx platform besides actually going on to Plsx itself. Really all the information you need is here. So what was my first 24 hours like? First off, I got all my older wallets with any Pulsechain sacrifices, put it onto more secure hardware wallets. That was the number one step. Second step, I dumped all the shit coins I had been accumulating this year straight for Pulse. A couple of the coins I actually might have rugged the Pulse in the pool. There basically isn't any Pulse anymore, and that was my strategy. I got a lot of smaller coins. I mean, probably the only coin you would know of would be Pepe. I had some Pepe, got Pulse from that. I'm not sure if that was a good idea or not for Pepe, but the other ones, the smaller ERC20s, I'm not talking about anything related to the Richard Hart or Pulsechain ecosystem, just other ERC20s. That looked to have been a good idea because I got all the Pulse. I think I got about 500,000 Pulse essentially for free. That was my airdrop. Third, we focused pretty much on that Pulsex ratio. This is where I've spent most of the last 24, 48 hours when I've been messing with Pulsechain on the Pulsex dApp with the swap page, directly looking at the Pulsex to Pulse ratio, trying to jump in there if I can. It would have been sweet if this chart were working so you could visualize the ratio. I got the numbers in my head. You can also look on Deck Screener if you want. So what I did with this ratio is in my head I had, before Pulse launched, the number I had in my head was 3.5. Because I think there was roughly 140,000 Pulsex wallets that sacrificed and only 40,000 PLS wallets that sacrificed. And when you divide that, there was 3.5 times as many Pulsex wallets. So that's kind of where I came up with that ratio. It seemed like a really fair number between the two groups of people. Those who really needed Pulse, who didn't have any at all, and those who can wait and kind of play the ratios. So I wasn't there initially the first couple hours of launch. Unfortunately, I was away from home, didn't have access to my sacrifice wallet, so I had to wait. I know it started at like a little over 1-to-1, and then it started moving really quick. I mean, most people didn't get in early. Only a few fortunate people did. And that ratio, I believe it went all the way down to like 5-to-1, I think. About 5-to-1. So unfortunately, some people swap Pulsex for Pulse at 5-to-1. You can see it's about 3.6 now. So back to my original plan was if we saw 3.5 or less, I was going to take 25% of my Plsx and swap it to Pulse to add to my Pulse bag. All right, the chart freaked out. The numbers freaked out on me. It does that every once in a while if you let it run too long without doing something to keep it active. So I was looking for that 3.5 number. When I finally got home and got all my hardware wallets set up, or they were already set up, but I got all the Pulse and the Pulsex where I needed it to go, I saw the ratio the ratio I got was 3.35, and I pulled the trigger. I did my plan. You plan the plan and you execute it. 3.35. And I was pretty happy with that. And I was prepared if it was going to go even lower, fall down to 3-to-1, down to 2-to-1, I was going to keep going more and more and more. And if it kept falling, I would eventually have been all in PLS. And then whereas the opposite would be true, if we get above, I'm not going to say what my number is, but if we keep moving up against PLSX, so 4-to-1, 5-to-1, 6-to-1, I'm going to switch probably, and I will start swapping the PLS back into PLSX. And if we get high enough, I could see myself having no pulse left and being all in Plsx. That doesn't look to be what's happening now, though. I'm pretty sure I've heard a couple people talking about this. It seems like what's going on is the OA is providing a lot of liquidity in this range that it's kind of stuck in, because we haven't seen the 3.3 that I initially ratio traded. It's been stuck really between like 3.5 and like 3.8. Like moves in that range, and that's a really tight range. There's not a lot of room to make any money really ratio trading. I don't think it's worth it. I haven't. I've just kind of, as we've come down, I just every once in a while I'll swap a little bit of Plsx into Pulse as we get closer to the 3.5 range that I think's fair. The pre-bridge is kind of played itself out. I think people have done what they've wanted to do, and we're waiting for the bridge to come, which Richard said it won't be Sunday. I'm thinking it will probably be Monday or Tuesday. And then the game plan, you can't really guess what's going to happen. It's going to be whatever the retail market coming into Pulse, bridging over from Ethereum, wants to do, basically. And I'll know more at that point. So I'm just preparing, I've got all my positions, and I'm just going to react to what the market does. I've really been focusing on getting as much Pulse as possible pre-bridge, because I think once that the retail money comes in, they're going to want Pulse. That's going to be their number one priority. Right now, we're in this sealed garden environment where we're all of us probably have Hex. Most of us have Plsx and all sorts of other Richard ecosystem coins. And everybody's kind of got different strategies. They have different preferences. Like you have Hex Maxis here. They've probably been trading everything for Hex. You got people that are really bullish on Pulsex, and they're probably trading Pulse for Pulsex if they have it. And then you have any range of people that maybe like Hedron. There's just a lot of little niches basically in the Richard ecosystem, and people are trading towards their preferences. And right now it's all kind of blending together, and we're kind of there's not crazy movement here, especially in the Plsx ratio. But once that bridge happens, the number one priority in the market is going to be, I think, to get PLS at all costs. They're not coming in to get Hex, because if they were, they already would have it. They're probably not even coming for Pulsex. And they're definitely not coming for the smaller stuff. Hedron, Icosa, Tetra, Fiat, all that stuff. They probably don't even know what it is. They probably never will. Everybody knows about PLS, and if they don't now, they're going to know about it, because the big influencers like BitBoy, Ivan on Tech, they're going to be talking about Pulsechain. And you saw that flick down to 3.3 ratio. That's like impossible to get. I think bots are kind of eating that up. Like I've tried, and you're just going to waste gas unless you set your slippage really high. That's the only way to catch it. But then if you have high slippage, a lot of times you're going to catch it coming back up, and you're not going to even get the good rate. So there's almost no point. I think people got bots that are eating up that ratio. That's what you'll see it do that for like half a second and then come back up to what it's doing. Right now it's kind of going back up, and I think at the start of the day it was more at 3.8, and it started to come down into the 3.5s, and now it's going back up again. So we keep kind of going up and down in this channel, and people are probably trading it a little bit back and forth. Yeah, I do think we're going to definitely shift towards a pulse dominated market. So that has been my strategy to get as much pulse as I can. Like I said, with my ERC20s that I got free copies on, I immediately got Pulse. We've been trading a little bit of Pulsex for Pulse. Yeah, I'm probably traded like 30% of my Pulsex for Pulse. The other stuff, I have been trading a little bit. I've done a Hex trade, which one Hex is 103 Pulse, and I've seen that as high as 110. I have traded at 100, and I'm kind of waiting to see if we can hit that 110, and I'll trade some more Hex for Pulse. I know that ratio started a lot lower, and Hex people smashed it. But I think that this ratio is going to be biased. If this ratio holds, you'll say, well, Pulse isn't even going to make that much money above sack rate. But I think this is kind of a manipulated price just because there's such a bias towards Hex here. And that's not going to happen post-bridge. There's not going to be people trading Pulse for Hex because they don't have either. They're just going to be buying Pulse, I think. What else? The other thing I've had is incentive token. Because I am farming, and I'll show you that after this. Incentive token, I haven't swapped it yet. I probably should have. I saw it get up to like 140,000 PLS for incentive token, and it's coming back down again. So I'm that's the thing I'm not too sure, and I don't think anybody really is, what the deal with incentive token is going to be. Like, how much is that going to be worth? It's going to have value because there's some... people are going to want to do stuff with it, so it's not going to go to zero, but it does help to take sell pressure off Plsx. It's such an interesting ecosystem we have here. At the highest point, I think incentive token value pre-bridge was $50. If you want to say that Hex on Pulse is worth Hex on Ethereum, and right now it's down to like $30. So that's pretty cool. I'll show you how much I made. I've been staking the liquidity pair for PLS and PLSX for about 48 hours now, and I got 2.25 ink, which is over $100, maybe closer to 200. It just depends. We don't really know, but that's pretty good. You could say roughly $100 a day, and I'm not even staking that much. I just recently added onto my LP position, and when you do that, it's cool. It automatically harvests the INC token for you and sends it to your wallet. If you don't, it will just build up, and you can harvest it on your own if you don't want to add. I'm assuming it also will harvest it for you if you remove, and that's a small percentage of my Pulse or Pulsex bags. It's much less than 10%. I'm experimenting with it. I'm not going to go too heavy into liquidity providing, like I said, because my concern with that is once that bridge opens, you're going to get killed. If you want Pulse, I think you're going to get a lot of that Pulse is going to be bought, and then you're going to have Pulsex if you remove it. But if you want to wait for like a year, you should be fine on that. But I definitely wanted to get in the first few days because the APR is usually going to be higher than what it's going to be probably in a week or two once more people are using the system. And plus with that, the OA providing liquidity, there's not as much risk in permanent loss. So I'm fine with that. I'll probably remove some of this either later tonight or early tomorrow morning if I think the bridge is about ready to announce. Not all of it. I'll always have some. I think if you want to have like, say like 5% or anywhere from like 1 to 10% would be okay. And you're just going to say, well, I'm not going to touch this. I'm just going to leave this till 2025 and then we'll see what it looks like. Because I guess you're fine. You're probably bullish on Pulsex and Pulse. So you're fine with up to 10% of your bag being converted to all Pulse or all Pulsex. Worst case scenario, if you own both, it's fine. Plus, your the incentive token reward you're making is somewhat making up for that, especially early on. We're back to PLSburn.com. I wanted to touch on the gas before I wrap this video up. Unfortunately, the gas has shot through the roof in perspective to how it started. I remember the first day, or really the first couple hours, I was doing transactions for 1 PLS, less than 1 PLS, like doing swaps. I did some swaps at like 0.2 PLS. So that was basically free money. The number was so low, I can't even fathom what it was. Now the price, and unfortunately this started because of one project that it's pretty spammy in nature. I don't want to offend you if you own it, but it's very hard on traffic for the average user of the DEX. It's good if you're liquidity providing or you're validating because you're getting all their fees. So what I mean, really, at the end of the day, all traffic's generally good for the DEX because that's what makes it money and creates a market share and value in the eyes of the market. So the gas, wow, it's even higher than it was just like right before I started doing this video for a swap 2000 PLS, which is, we can do it real quick on the calculator. If you want to go by the SAC rate, it's not that expensive, right? Because you're complaining about, oh my, look how much pulse I have to spend. Well, if it's 20 cents, you compare that to Ethereum, like you're doing Ethereum trade is going to be like $20, right? So that's not bad at all. Now, the thing is, if you consider that, let's say Pulse does a 10x, we don't know what its value is, but let's say it's really 10x higher than it is. Well, then that's $2. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of makes some stuff expensive if you want to do a ton of trades and you don't have that much money. And I mean, it does hurt. The more PLS you use, the less that's going to be in your bags. If we do like 100x or something, you know, that is going to add up. Like now you're talking $20. So every transaction, if we do 100x, costs you $20. All right, so that's what I did the first 2 days of Pulsechain. It wasn't as hectic as I thought it was going to be. It was very interesting because we've been waiting years for this. I think the OA stabilizing the Pulsex and pulse ratio, I mean, I'm not sure that's what happened, but I think it is. Made it a lot less crazy than it could have been. I mean, we could have, without that, we could have seen swing, you know, we could have gone up to 10-1, back down to 2-1, and people could have made a killing, going back and forth. But so far there's really not been a point to do that because the risk isn't worth it. You're not really making much doing it, but it does help you get into your position that you wanted. You know, if you said, I wanted this many PLS and I want this much PLSX, you can kind of safely get into those positions before the bridge opens. It could be crazy when that bridge opens, so I will get back to you then.